Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Fins Faithful Podcast. As always, guys, we are live currently on YouTube and on X. Thanks for coming out and hanging out with us this evening. Well, the Eagles are the champs, Super Bowl champions, in a rather boring one-sided dominant game. They win 40-22 yesterday versus the Kansas City Chiefs, led by a Vic Fangio-led defense. That's the story of the game, is that Eagles defensive line. I'm sure we'll get into Fangio and all that good stuff. But it begs the question to ask is, how far are the Dolphins from actually playing in that game? We'll kind of examine that. We'll get into that. Plus, I want to get into some Tyreek Hill comments that he made, and I got some thoughts on that whole Tyreek situation and maybe the direction the Dolphins maybe should go in. But we'll break all that down, and you never know where the show leads us. To help me do all that, I'm joined by a friend of the program, friend of mine, Steve Malloy. From the Real Talk Fins Talk on the Fins Talk Sports Network. Steve, how you doing this evening, man? How are you?
George, I'm doing great, man, and thank you for having me on. Yeah, I can't wait to get into it. It's going to be a juicy one tonight.
All right, so let's get into the game. Yesterday, I
Sure.
thought from the beginning it looked like it was out of hand. I think we start and finish with the four-man front of the Philadelphia Eagles. And this is a copycat league. Now, everybody in the league this offseason is going to be looking for defensive linemen and edge rushers. There is some hope for the Dolphins in that part with Chop and Phillips coming back, but it was a defensive. Vic Fangio had a great scheme. Look who got the last laugh. We'll talk about Vic in that defense. But yeah, they had four-man line. They ran an umbrella defense, the four-man show. They were doing that, the stuff that the teams do to the Dolphins. They were allowed to do that because of how great that front four played, and that was the story of the game. And on the other side, the story was the Chiefs' offensive line. I think they had basically no left tackle in the game. They had to move. Who'd they move over there?
Was it?
Thune?
Yes,
Thune.
yes. They moved him there. He's normally doesn't play. He was
Right.
playing out of position,
Right.
basically.
No knock on him. He's a heck of a player, but that's not
Right.
his position. He's not a left tackle.
Right.
You saw
Right.
that with the offensive line. Mahomes had
Mm-hmm.
really no chance. And Jalen Hurts, I thought, was composed, efficient. What was he? 17 for 22. Took the run when he needed to run. 72 yards on the ground. Let's not forget, this is his second really good Super Bowl performance. He had 300 yards passing in the first one where they lost. But yeah, I thought it was not a great Super Bowl game, not a great halftime. Yeah, your thoughts, Steve, on the game?
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I was pulling for the Philadelphia Eagles. I did want them to win, and I thought they would win for the reasons that you just mentioned. The trenches. I thought they were a lot stronger in the trenches than the Chiefs. And so I didn't think they were going to win the way that they did. But yeah, I definitely thought that they were going to win. And yeah, talking about Vic Fangio, yeah, he got the last laugh for sure.
Yeah.
And you're right. The way that the Philadelphia Eagles defense and Fangio's defense played against Mahomes, and that's the first time I believe Fangio's beaten Mahomes.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken. So he figured him out. And basically they played the same thing, that same type of defense that a lot of your good teams, good coordinators play against the Miami Dolphins. And it was matchups too. It was the personnel. Like I said, the Philadelphia Eagles personnel they outmatched the Kansas City Chiefs in the trenches on the offensive line. Their average, I think was it the line or the defensive line? The average height and weight is 6'6", 338 pounds. I think it was the offensive line of the Philadelphia Eagles. That's crazy.
Yeah, Josh
That's
Sweat
crazy.
was unbelievable yesterday.
Yeah, he was, man.
All those guys are homegrown in the draft, and we'll talk a little bit about coming up the draft. Some of the things that maybe correlate with the Dolphins. So go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, but as far as the overall game, yeah, I mean it was pretty lopsided, one-sided. And you mentioned the halftime show, dude. I didn't even know who the guy was. I didn't even understand what he was saying. I mean, it was the worst halftime show personally I've ever seen. Maybe that's because I'm old school. I'm an old guy and all that, but But no, I didn't enjoy it, not one iota.
Yeah, same here. I was kind of looking for Kendrick Lamar. You know, he's obviously Steve. You didn't know who Kendrick Lamar was? I'm shocked.
I have no clue.
I
You
mean,
talk about Biggie Smalls, Tupac, or the Sugar Hill Gang back in
oh,
the day. Then you're talking my language.
yeah. All right, so I mean, yeah, Vic. Let's talk about Fangio, man. Just real quick.
Sure.
Uh, boy, do we make? It looks like we made a mistake again. Decision. Again, we make the wrong decision. Not look. Weaver wasn't bad. I mean, we're not going to get into this whole Weaver Fangio debate, but he wasn't
No.
bad. But to think that Fangio was like cooked and couldn't coach a defense, maybe the personalities didn't match more than anything. I don't think it was because I think Weaver's kind of scheme and stuff, it worked here. I don't know how much better Fangio would have been with it, but I think personality wise, I think Fangio's more old school, and maybe that has something to do with the demeanor in the locker room that maybe needs to change. Or are we a little, soft, Steve?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been, Jordan Brooks said it after the Green Bay game. You've had Jalen Ramsey say it. Jordan Poyer has said it. Deshaun Elliott has said it. You've had many folks that have talked about this Miami Dolphins team as being soft. Now I know, they're NFL football players, compared to us civilians here. Yeah, they're tough, they're big, they're, tough guys. But when you compare them to other NFL players, they're soft. I mean, just look at the difference. And I hate bringing this up and making this comparison, but look at the difference between the O-line of the Philadelphia Eagles and the Miami Dolphins O-line. Their average size was, as I said, 6'6", 330 pounds, and they're very physical, very physical. I mean, those guys were bullying folks, man. I mean, and Kansas City's offense line is, I mean, they're physical as well, but they were just outmatched by the Philadelphia Eagles. They just wanted it more, mentally, physically, they just wanted it more.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Vic Fangio, man, they played him just like that's the way everybody plays in Miami Dolphins. You got that high leverage with the linebackers, the too high safety, and they rushed 4. I mean, they only blitzed Mahomes, I think, once the whole game, just one time.
Yeah, but to rush 4, you have to have
outstanding.
You have to have an outstanding 4-man front. And that's credit to Howie Roseman, who I think we'll talk about building that for. You saw the team that dominated on both sides of the line of scrimmage. This is something we always wonder, what's the secret sauce? Why haven't we got past that point? There's a lot of things, but you can have all these fancy toys on the outside, but if you're not physical and dominant up front, that's the secret sauce to advancing in January and February. For some reason, our GM, who continues to last, doesn't get that. And you just look on what happened in this Super Bowl. The one thing you'll take away is line of scrimmage play. Was the difference. Not even the quarterbacks.
No.
Line of scrimmage play, because Mahomes. In a perfect world, Mahomes is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. You know what I mean? But you saw what the line of scrimmage does and how effective it is. And all the fans have been shouting from the rooftop to Chris Grier, hey, get dominant at the line. Everything else will fall into place. It's easier to find those other guys. And like I said, all this stuff is a domino effect, like we'll talk about. And we'll kind of examine maybe the 20 and 21 draft a little bit later on. All right, so let's transition to the Dolphins. We asked the question at the top of the show, how far are they from being able to play in this game, right? So couple things. We mentioned the line of scrimmage. We mentioned, we can mention the quarterback. We can mention comparing D lines, comparing the corners. But fans, this is the comparison. This is the difference if you want to compare Howie Roseman to Chris Grier. That's where it starts, because everything else under that is just a chain reaction of decisions. And if you compare how he built the team to versus how Chris Grier does it, it's all you need to know. It's not comparing Tua versus Hurts. It's not comparing, their guard versus even Liam Markenberg, which is, or Cam Jurgens or Landon Dickerson versus, Aaron Brewer, all this other stuff. No, it's Howie Roseman versus Chris Grier. There's a difference. Even if you want Tua as your quarterback, you have to have the right guy to build the proper roster around him. And we just don't have that guy as capable. And so we can do this merry-go-round, and we're going to have a lot of podcasts this season. We're going to have a lot of shows. But how much does it mean if there's not all of a sudden change of philosophy in that front office that just clicks like a light bulb? And I will say this, Howie Roseman, I was looking at his drafts. Howie Roseman's technically been a GM for the Eagles since 2010. He had some rough drafts along the way. But since about 2020, he's kind of figured it out, right? So maybe there's some hope for Grier that he's been there a while. I'm leaving a little bit of a window of optimism here. But yeah, so kind of, Steve, how far are they away? And kind of what are the things that you see that's what's holding this team back? I'm sure we're going to be aligned on a lot of these things.
Yeah. Well, the number one thing that I mentioned, and I've been talking about, all this past season and everything is you said it. They've got to change the philosophy. They've got to change the culture. And I got to agree with Tyreek on this one. We need some dogs. We need some dogs in the trenches. Okay. We need some dogs in the trenches, and we don't have them. And we need some really big guys up front in the O-line. I think they're going to have to go to more of a physical type offense, and defensive lines. They need to. This finesse is not working. It's not working in today's NFL. And number one, they just got to get into the trenches. That's the number one, George. Number two, I think they need to get a nice size receiver, someone, a tall 50-50 type receiver. They need to get a tight end. We need a good all-around blocking and catching tight end. Somebody can be down, can play 3 downs. Jonnu Smith is good. He's a good piece, but he's not a blocker. He does not block very well at all. He's fast. He can catch, but he fits well with the finesse type of philosophy or culture. But we need a physical tight end. And we also need, I believe, a power back. We definitely need a power back. Now, if we get a physical line, as I just said, we need physicality in the trenches. If we can get it on both sides of the ball and we get a good, then we might not have to get a big power back. We could probably go with Achane and Jalen Wright. But as it stands right now, we are way, way behind, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. There's no chance that we can even compete. Now next year is even going to be worse, in my opinion. We don't have the money, and and here I was hearing some rumors. I think it was Fin Central might have brought this up. They're thinking about switching Austin Jackson back to guard.
Really?
Yes. They're talking.
Oh.
Yeah, those were the rumors.
Draft a tackle?
Draft a guard, move Patrick Paul to right tackle. And I don't know if Armstead is retiring or not. It doesn't seem like it. I didn't get that impression. And I know he's been in talks with the Miami Dolphins about his future. And if he stays, and you got a second round draft pick in Patrick Paul, and he's not starting, so they're gonna they're gonna play these musical chairs again, I'm afraid, and they're gonna bring Paul. They're gonna put Paul at right tackle, Armstead at left tackle, and they're gonna move to Jackson to guard. And I don't know who they're gonna use as their starter. Are they gonna go back with? Are they gonna draft a guard? Are they gonna get a guard in free agency to play alongside him? I don't know. But those are just some food for thought. Right now as it stands, we're nowhere near those two teams.
Yeah, and all this can't be done in one. You can't just build a physical line in one offseason.
You can't.
You look at the Eagles, how they built it. It's over the years, over multiple drafts. That's the problem. I'm my boy Kenny here. Thanks for coming in the chat. He says we need to go draft heavy. I actually think you need to do both. I think you need to get at least one interior free agent guard in the market. There's some guys out there. The Jenkins from the Bears, Tavon Jenkins, Will Henderson, Will Fries from the Colts, a bunch of names. The guy from the 49ers, why is his name slipping my mind? Former second-round pick from the Niners. There's some guards. I think you need to get one of those guys. Now, I know everybody wants to do it in the draft, but you don't, and we'll talk about this with the draft, is don't force a need at 13. You don't force needs. You build and you draft the guys who are the best value on the board, and you get them as many good football players, best players you can from the draft in your building, and you figure it out later. You're in the business of acquiring talent, okay? And we'll talk the difference. There's a difference between the draft and free agency. Free agency, you have a pool of players. You got to spend this money, this amount of money. The draft is where you get your all pros, your Hall of Famers. That's where you got to go highest ceiling, BPA. You draft for need, you get in trouble. Look what the Eagles have done. I might as well just get into this now. Look what the Eagles have done. We come out of last year's draft thinking, how the heck did they come out with Quinyon Mitchell, who's a top? I had maybe 10 or 11 on my board, and then Cooper DeJean in the second round, who I had maybe 15 to 25. I don't remember. How do they do it? Because why? When they look at their board, they say, we're taking the best value, the guy who will make the biggest impact, and we'll figure out where he plays later, because needs constantly change with injuries, with age. Those are the things, that the Dolphins, that's a philosophy that needs to change in the draft for them that they haven't done. Look what happened in 21 or 2020. They took Austin Jackson at 18. They were taking a tackle no matter what, right? That's right. Your first real draft of rebuilding this franchise, and you're reaching for a player. I mean, these are the kind of things where you're already done. It's already over, right? When you start doing that, then Noah Igbenogany, you're drafting for need. You draft for need, you should be fired, except for the Miami Dolphins and Stephen Ross. Sorry, I went off on that tangent, but I just think this is something that's been going on for the Dolphins for too long, and they need to start. What do the great teams do? Baltimore, all these things. You look at the draft, you say, how the heck did they get all these guys? Because they're not sitting there trying to. You know what the difference is? The Dolphins organization, they're not trying to win a Super Bowl by the way they draft. They're all Chris Greer's trying to do is not bottom out. Band-aid all these needs. There's a difference. The Eagles are going for it. Howie Roseman has conviction, has confidence and belief. Let's get these high-octane athletes in the building. The Dolphins know, let's Band-Aid this position so we can go into training camp, and a minimum, we're an 8-win team. I can keep my job. I can go in the office of Stephen Ross and kind of give him excuses. That's the difference. We're drafting not to be bad. These other teams are drafting to win Super Bowls, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. They're drafting. Look at all the teams that look at the Patriots when they were a dynasty back in the day, right? What did they do? They went out. They built through the draft. They filled in with a few pieces here and there in free agency, but mostly through the draft. They wait 2 or 3 years. The guy's in his prime. What do? They already have somebody behind him to replace him. They let him go. They say they don't have to pay him this money, and they got a rookie in there or a second-year guy in there still on a rookie contract. It comes in there and fills in, and they don't lose anything. They don't lose anything because they've developed their young talent, and that's what we have to do, and we're not doing that. And and like you said, they reached for Jackson, they've reached for Eichenberg. They moved up for Eichenberg as well.
That's the 21. Let's get into the 21 draft now.
Sure.
We might as well, since we're on that topic. All right. So that famous draft, we had the 3rd overall pick that year, right? We got lucky. The Texans. I remember watching that game. Texans missed that field goal. Our pick went to number 3. Great draft where the Lawrence and you had the quarterbacks and you had Jamar Chase.
Right.
So we're sitting here at 3. I'm trying to go back what I was thinking at that time. Steve, you can hop in anytime you want. I was thinking at 3. Okay, We're not going to obviously do the quarterback. We just took to Jamar Chase. I saw 2 gold jacket players in that top 5 or 6 players. That was Chase and that was Sewell. Okay? Mm-hmm. 2 gold jacket players. They missed twice. And we'll talk about it. For fans who don't know what happened in that draft, the 21 draft, they had the 3rd pick. They moved down to 12. I thought, okay, wow, they took themselves out of that, but they added 2 first-round picks. And they did it early, right? I think it was in March during the pro days. I remember having a pro day on, I think it was Zach Wilson's pro day, wasn't it? And all breaking news, Dolphins trade down. My eyes were like, what? Yep. 2 first-round picks. I go, okay, you added 2 ones. I get it. I can live with that. Stay at 12. Not an hour later, my joy was taken. They move up. They give up one of those first-round picks to move up to number 6. First trade was great. Second trade was awful. Okay, we're getting in the draft. We pick 6. There's a lot of talk. I thought they'd go Devontae Smith or Waddle, or I was hoping they'd go with the tackle. Because, again, who is the highest? Who's the guy you think at the end of the day will impact your franchise more and be the better player and be able to put him in the Dolphins Ring of Honor and maybe one day be in the Hall of Fame? That's what you got to be thinking when you're picking that high.
Yeah.
So they take Waddle. They pass up Sewell. So not only did they pass up Chase by the trade, they passed up Sewell at 6. And if you saw the reaction in that Lions war room, that's all I remember. That's all you need to know.
They were clapping, man.
Yeah, that's it. You know what I mean? If we took Sewell and they took Waddle, their reaction wouldn't have been the same. Now, Jalen's a good player. Top 20 receiver in the league, you say? Something around there?
He's top 20, 25.
Yeah. Good football player. Great weapon. You could find receivers. All right. Yeah. Not to mention that same draft, Devontae Smith went 10. You could have stayed at 12 and moved up like the Eagles did. Again, Howie Roseman. He's the one who we traded up from 6 to 12 again. And then he moved from 12 to 10 with the Eagles, with the Cowboys, I believe. Gave up, I think, a 3rd-round pick and took Devontae Smith. So, again, you could have had a receiver lower. And you know who went number 12 that year? Micah Parsons.
Yeah, I remember.
So you can add Micah again, because we're not thinking edge. We were thinking exactly what we need.
Yeah.
Again, we're not thinking best player available. Don't give me that crap. We don't take best player available. I don't want to hear about Patrick Paul wasn't the best player available. No. Chop Robinson, as much as I love him, wasn't the best player available. As much as I had my doubts about him, still, I don't think he was the best player available. The best player available were the 2 corners. And I said it on the podcast audio version at the time of the draft. If you really want to go, I love Graham Barton, but if you really want to go, who were the 2 best guys? It was Arnold that went to the Lions and Mitchell, who we just saw in the Super Bowl for the Eagles.
Yep.
But then again, back to my point. So those are the kind of things that are limiting the Dolphins. In the 21 draft, the 20 draft, that's where this thing came apart. And I think that's where they missed. And everything after that, they became one of the youngest teams to so rapidly being one of the oldest teams. There was no plan. Never a plan. The plan lasted a year or 2. But yeah, so and then 2nd round. Not only, okay, I'm going to pull up the draft. It's just it drives me nuts. 2nd round, Javon Holland, fine. He won't be here this year, though. This is last year. You know who's picked right after that? Philadelphia Eagles select Landon Dickerson. Then we trade up from, I think, 50 to 42, okay, and give up a 3rd-round pick, and we take Liam Eichenberg. You know who's picked 63? Kareem Humphrey.
Yeah.
And it's not that, we can play revisionist history and Monday morning quarterback, but these are positions the Dolphins needed. It's not like, it's not like we're talking about a wide receiver and they had Hill and Waddle, or they just drafted Waddle. These are positions they needed. They continuously fumble the draft management, draft assets, the way they manipulate the board, everything. It's the difference between the Lions, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Ravens, and so on. Okay, Let me take a breath. The floor is yours, Steve. Unload 2021 draft.
No, you said everything right on. You were spot on. And here's the thing: if you go back and you look at the drafts between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles, you can go as far back as I believe 2018, and think it's 2016 or 2018. I don't remember, but if you go back, you can go back pretty far back, as far as at least 18, I'm sure. And they hit 3 or 4 impact players every draft. They average 3 to 4. I don't mean, just an average starter. I don't mean like an H-hand or someone like that. I mean impactful
You're
players.
talking about the Eagles, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about the Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
They hit impact players, guys that make a difference on the team, and that's the difference right there. And if you check the Miami Dolphins draft picks, they might hit only one. If that, they're lucky if they hit one. I think the last draft we had Jalen Wright. Okay, we don't know what kind of impact he's going to make. He played a limited amount of time. Everybody's talking about Patrick Paul. He played a limited amount of time. And I know everybody doesn't like PFF. A lot of folks don't. I like PFF. I use it as a guide, right? I don't base my whole entire, analytics on data on the PFF. But it gives you a good indication of the performance and how these players do. And Patrick Paul, his score was a 45. Okay. A score of 60 is a backup. 70 is a solid player. 80 is a real good player. 90, and above is elite. He was at a 45. Now, of course, he had limited playing time. But then now we're talking Jalen Wright, Patrick Paul, Achane. Achane had a good year, right? He really had a good year this year, receiving and running. But he can't do it all, and that was the best. Who else came out of that draft when we drafted Achane?
Which one? The 20? What year was that? 20.
That was not last year's, the year before. Yeah, 23. Who else came out of that draft?
For the Dolphins, that was the
Dolphins.
Cam Smith draft.
Cam Smith.
Yeah, that was Cam Smith, right?
Bust.
Vic Fangio's guy.
Channing Tindall. Bust.
Yeah, the Cam Smith, they only had, to be fair, they gave up. That's when they kind of transitioned to F those picks, which I think was another mistake they made along in the rebuild.
Yeah.
They continued building draft capital, even though they don't do great with it. That draft, the 23 draft, Cam Smith, they had a second, a third, a sixth, and a seventh. Look at this, 22 and 23. They had a total of 8 picks, 4 in each draft, and in 22, the highest pick they had is a third rounder. They took Channing Tindall, Eric Izukama, Cameron Good, Skylar Thomas. Throw that draft away. No draft.
Yep.
23, Cam Smith, bust. Devon Achane, probably their best draft pick.
Yep.
In some time. Elijah Higgins, who's playing for the Arizona Cardinals, and then Ryan Hayes, who's a practice squad player for the Dolphins, who gets a cup of coffee once in a while. They basically, again, like I said, no plan. You went from having all these picks in 20, multiple.
Well, they gave up picks too.
Yeah.
Right? But they gave up picks when they got Tyreek Hill.
And we talked about it. Was the Tyreek Hill acquisition kind of the beginning of the end, because it changed the full. I thought the whole point was to build a sustainable winner. You do that by loading up in the draft, and you see the lack of depth on this team. This team's old, man. Okay, they went from young to old. 20 and 21, a bunch of picks. All of a sudden, they give it. Everything can't be so radical, right? It's either all or nothing. It seems like, because that's when you don't have a plan.
And you made a good point.
They're desperate.
Yeah, and you made a good desperate. And you made a good point too. Depth. What depth do we have?
Well,
these other teams have depth. Kansas City, Philadelphia, Baltimore, all these teams that have been competing, they have depth. Buffalo, depth. We don't have depth.
When you basically throw 2 drafts away besides Achane, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And last year, and we're talking about Armstead coming back. So now, where does a Patrick Paul, who I believe will be 24 or 25 already? So you're saying that they can move him to right tackle. You're going to play musical chairs again at the offensive line?
That's my point.
Somebody made a great point about linemen. It's not easy to go from left to right. It's like trying to wipe your butt in the bathroom with the other hand. Try it. It's different.
Case in point, George. Case in point with Kansas City, and he went from the tackle. He was playing left tackle. That wasn't his position. He was playing out of position the other night. Yeah. Case in point. He's a great right tackle, right? But when you move him
It's
over to the
different.
left side, he's totally different.
They need new personnel on the line. Let's not play musical chairs and think we got this this whole thing figured out again. You need to upgrade the personnel, period. Beach Rays, everybody in the chat, Luna Moon, me, DSG, thank you. Beach Rays, yeah, I think 25 is going to be a wash. Look, as long as Chris Greer is the general manager, I don't think things will bottom out, but I think we're going to see much of the same. I mean, we got an offseason to get into. We have a free agency and a draft, but what leads me to believe that anything's going to be different under Greer unless he all of a sudden has a shift. And maybe the shift is he really knows now. He's been comfortable that he's on the hot seat finally. Maybe that's what clicks. Okay, I got to go. I got to change directions here. I can't keep playing it safe because safe 8-9 wins could get me fired. This is the first time safe's going to get him fired. I'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it. But I think this year he's really going to be on the hot seat. So maybe he doesn't play that safe. And no, they better not get in the Myles Garrett sweepstakes. If I see that,
oh yeah,
I'm going to devote a whole episode to that. If they do that, I mean,
if they
don't
even
get in that.
If they do that, we know what direction they're going to go in.
That's a
we know exactly if they do that. That's like the same thing they've been doing, right? Getting a big hot name, big guy. They did it with Sue. They've done it with all these big name guys, and they come over here and they don't pan out. The only one that I think that has panned out is Terran Armstead, and then he's even injury. He's injury 4 or 5 games of the year.
Yeah.
So but yeah, no, we don't. I don't think they have the money to get Myles Garrett, man, to be honest with you. I mean, I know they can do some reconstructing and stuff, but
it's very Chris Greer kind of move.
True.
Very Stephen Ross but then you're that's what the problem when you have a lame duck GM.
Yeah, exactly.
Not even a lame duck coach.
Good
I mean
point.
a lame duck GM.
Yeah,
you get
good point.
Because I think Chris Greer has never even been close to being fired. I don't think it's been even close. And I know there's some murmurs that were out there and rumors and noise and little birdies talking at the end, towards the end of the season. But I think this is the first time he really might feel like I can't do the same thing. Because trust me, I'm telling you, I don't know if you have a different opinion, Steve. You think he's safe no matter what, but I don't think this is a season where 9 wins is going to get you back.
I don't know, man.
I don't think so.
I think Chris Greer has a lifetime appointment with the Miami Dolphins football team. That's my opinion.
Or as long as Stephen Ross is the owner.
Or as long as Stephen Ross is the owner. Correct. Yeah.
No, DSG, none of that. None of that.
Trade Tua for Rodgers. Nah, we can't do that. But yeah,
Chris Greer you're talking about. Go ahead.
It's real early to really start speculating on what they're going to do and all that stuff. And all that. I mean, I know what I want them to do, and I'd like to see them do. Are they going to do it? That's the case in point. And I don't know. We're just going to have to kind of wait and see, George. And I think we're going to get a better indication of how this Miami Dolphins football team, what direction they're going to go in at the free agency and also the draft. That's where we're going to get, the telling signs of which direction they're going to go. It's just too early at this point. Too much talk going on. Too many rumors floating around. Like with the Armstead thing and all that. And you heard Tyreek Hill, talk, and we'll get into that. I know you wanted to get into that. Yeah. Tyreek saying he wants to be in Miami, wants to stay here. Look, man, I don't believe anything that guy says. Anything comes out of his mouth, and you got him all year talking about his wrist. He had a hurt wrist. Well, at first we didn't know what the ailment was, and then we heard it was his wrist. And now he had videos on freaking X where he's pushing the sled. Yeah. He's pushing the sled with both his hands, and working out with weights and stuff like that. What happened to the wrist surgery?
Yeah, and I'll give credit to Omar Kelly. Omar Kelly said, "Look, this guy's a liar." like
he is.
He said, I give him credit. Usually, you don't see beat writers kind of.
No, I didn't know he said that.
Yeah,
I didn't know he said that.
He said he likes Tyreek. He's a good guy, but he lies. There's a lot of emotional there's not a lot of emotional stability with Tyreek, and I guess we'll talk about the Tyreek stuff now as you brought it up. I heard him on Radio Row, and I knew he was going to do this. Apologize. I love Tua. I love the Dolphins. Blah blah blah. Let me tell you something, and I got a message to the Miami Dolphins. If you don't look what happened down the street to the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler, this stuff doesn't go away. It's all good now. But on week 6, when he's got 4 catches for 36 yards and they're running that shell defense, he's double covered, and he doesn't have his stats because he's a me guy. Okay, don't get it twisted. This is going to rear its ugly head again.
Yeah, for sure.
You have to trade him this offseason. They're not going to do it because Chris Greer is desperate. But if you can get a second-round pick from maybe the team we saw last night in the Kansas City Chiefs, and maybe they take some of that salary, and you get a second-round pick, you do it. Even though because you got to change the way you play offense. Change it. Get bigger on the outside. You have Jalen Waddle. Tua can throw to big receivers. Look at Jonnu Smith. That thing with Tua, whether you like Tua or not, that thing where Tua can only throw to fast guys is ridiculous, right?
No, I agree. And Tua and Waddle had a good chemistry going before Tyreek, came to Miami.
And you look at free agency or in the draft, you can find use that pick that you're acquiring for Tyreek Hill and use some of that money, get more physical on the line, get a bigger receiver to go with Waddle, maybe another tight end, but you build your line, you change the way you play with Tua because you've hit the ceiling on that offense. That ceiling, it's done. Teams
and
have
here's
figured
the
out.
thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Here's the thing, George, and I want to ask you this question. And I've been giving this some thought myself, and I'm just wondering, do you think maybe, do you
That's
think
another thing?
do you think do you think maybe it's Mike McDaniel doesn't know any other scheme than what we've seen the last 3 years?
Great point.
You think
that's a great point. Yeah, maybe he doesn't know how to coach that other style, right?
Yeah.
That's a great point. We'll find out, right? I mean, I think
we're definitely going to find out.
We're going to find out. That's something I would like to see. That's why I would like to see him also with a more mobile quarterback, do some, a more physical line, do some other things. And to your point, when Tua goes out, what happens? The offense can't go from, even though when Tua was in this year, this wasn't a top 5 offense. So let's let's not put this whole thing that Tua came in, they dominated.
He was 6-5.
Yeah.
He was 6-5.
But the difference when he's in, the difference of a backup, and all good quarterbacks, when you go to a backup, there's going to be a difference. But the whole way the offense is played is just too drastic. To your point, that's a great point. See, maybe I hadn't thought of that. Maybe this is all he knows, and he doesn't want to change. Maybe Chris Greer knows that. We're putting all this on Chris Greer, but a lot of this sits on the table with Mike McDaniel as well.
Maybe our coach is limited.
Not only our GM, not only our quarterback, but
our coach.
Everybody has
the 3 musketeers are all 3 are limited.
They all have hard ceilings.
Yeah.
So, all right. So when we talk about going to the Super Bowl and how far, everybody wants to talk about the quarterback position. So I'm going to throw this question back at you, Steve. But great point about McDaniel.
Yeah.
Can the Miami Dolphins win a Super Bowl with Tua Tagovailoa as their starting quarterback?
No. No, I don't think so. I mean, look at Jalen Hurts. I know folks were talking about, well, look at the trenches. He's got, he has a great offensive line. Yes, but did you see how many times he had to roll out of the pocket and how many times he darted when he saw an open lane because there was nobody open? Can our quarterback do that and come back to the huddle in one piece? See, those are the limitations that Tua Tagovailoa has. Okay, and
we talked backstage about that.
We talked backstage about it, and he's limited in his mobility. And now with this hip injury, now we've got something else that we have to have concerned about. Now we not only do we have to be concerned with him if he does run, having a concussion, right, on a routine play. Now we've got to have concerns about how is that hip going to hold up? So
and this is something that I talked about with you backstage. Here's here's the issue, right? Here's where I've come to. This just came to my head last night, and it's been an obvious thing, but it just, sometimes you get a light bulb moment that it kind of clicks. Look, when everything's good around Tua, he's healthy. He can play like a top 10 quarterback at times in this scheme. Out of it, I don't know.
Yeah.
Tua's a quality NFL quarterback. But like you said, it's very difficult to get to the Super Bowl. Things have to break your way. But now, even when everything's clicking and he's healthy, there's restrictions. For example, 3rd and 1, 4th and 2, no quarterback sneak. Can't keep the drive alive with that. That's why you see all these quick screens and these outside runs and these sweeps, because you don't have the quarterback to do what the Eagles do with the.
Yeah, but to be fair, you got to have the trench play too. You know what I mean?
True.
You
but
do.
even with the trench play, they won't attempt it with him at quarterback.
No.
Because of the injuries.
No.
Right. That's my point.
Mm-mm.
Of course, the trench play is where it all starts. Also, the threat to run the ball, not going to happen. He might do it, but what's going to happen? Every significant hit he takes, he gets hurt. Like the one we thought he got away with, what was it, the Rams? Or the one we hurt the hip? Or who did they play?
That was a Houston game where
Houston
hurt
game.
the hip.
Yeah, Houston game. Now, the stinger or the hip injury, I think Marino said it was a hip pointer or whatever it is.
We don't know what it is. They're not going to tell us what it is.
Right. But so you don't have that threat. So there's going to be restrictions no matter what. It's already hard to get to the Super Bowl. Now it's harder because you have restrictions when everything is clicking. Now, I'll ask myself that question. Can they win the Super Bowl with Tua Tagovailoa? Everything would have to be perfect. And if it's perfect, and that's not with every quarterback. Everything can be perfect for Will Levis. He's not going to the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Everything can be perfect for I'm not saying, Tua's not good. But I mean they got to get home field advantage, have a great regular season. Everybody's got to stay healthy. One domino can't fall in the offense because the rest falls. You can't have an injury to a left tackle because then everything else falls. If the stars align and it's perfect on a given day, Tua can pick a defense apart when things are clicking. But the problem is chances of that happening are slim to none. And you know what? These superpower quarterbacks, you know what they do? They increase the chance. They increase the chance when everything is not working, you still can get through. And I think that's the problem we have with Tua. So I've always told you, treat it like and DSG, great point. Perfect never happens. It's why you see what the Dolphins have been going through. Exactly my point. And when I mean perfect, I mean just things, you got to go win 13, 14 games in the regular season, the weather, the home field advantage, all that good stuff is what I mean by perfect.
Yeah.
But I just lost my train of thought with that. But you can win with him. But what I want to see them do, okay, is I always said, treat it like the Alex Smith situation. In this draft, there's only one quarterback I'm looking at, Jalen Milroy. Not for right now. And I know he had a bad Senior Bowl, but even if the percentage is very small that he works out, if everything works out, you got a guy with star ability, athletic traits that can do things that you see these quarterbacks do in the Super Bowl. The percentage might be small, but it's time for them to take a shot. Not a quarterback who's probably going to be a backup quarterback like Kyle McCord or these other guys in the 3rd or 4th round. If you're going to do that, just wait. Just wait until next draft and hopefully a new general manager.
Yeah.
Even if the percentage is small, Steve, they need to take the shot.
I agree. Well, they need to do it. They need a guy that's going to be back there and they can develop them, and here's the thing. If it doesn't work out, they've got somebody they can trade for some assets, right? Somebody would, if he's a halfway decent rookie quarterback, somebody might be willing to take a shot on him, right? You get an asset back. Maybe it's not a high draft pick, but you get something back, right?
Right.
It's not like it's a waste, And you
go
ahead
on,
and
I'm okay with them taking the shot and missing.
Yeah, me too.
I know I got the right GM when I see some of those shots. Go ahead. They never take those shots. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
for sure. 100%. I agree with you. I'm with you on that. And hell, I would even go with Milton of the New England Patriots. Even if I'd take a shot with him.
Yeah,
that would be as a backup for right now. And maybe he works out. Maybe he doesn't.
That's what I'm talking about. They had a shot.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I know, and they didn't take it. But I'm with you. We need to draft a quarterback this year, and I don't mean a 5th and 6th, 7th round pick. I mean a high pick. Why
Yeah.
not take that
I'm
shot?
conflicted on it because of this quarterback class. Like I said, I want a guy.
There's
Milroe's my guy.
quarterbacks out there.
Yeah,
I look. I'm not into big college. I'm
yeah,
not into the college football that much as I used to be, and I haven't done a lot of, evaluations of
yeah.
quarterbacks and things. But
Right.
I've heard of quarterbacks, and when I hear the name, I'll look it up. Whatever. There's several quarterbacks out there, man. I mean, I think that's a bunch of bull crap. I think people are just want to make excuses up that there's nobody out there, so we're not going to take a shot. How do you know if you don't take it?
I agree. That's been the biggest problem in this organization. They don't take shots. They don't take high risk. They don't try to shoot for the moon. And listen, I don't want a locker room full of nice guys and choir boys. Okay,
Yeah.
this is the problem with this roster. You got to have top leadership, and then you got to have some. You got to take a chance on some dogs that your leadership can control in that locker room. A lot like New England did before. They could bring in Randy Moss, no problem. The leadership, whatever you think of Belichick, that's what they need to be doing. You can't have all these 4-year captains and all that. That stuff doesn't work all the time, man. You know what I mean? When you get on the field, you saw dogs. You saw it in Philadelphia. There was dogs all over the field there. I mean, God, look at their draft last year. A pick 6 from their 2nd-round pick.
I know.
And they put him on. I think they put him on Kelsey a lot. Like Fangio really did work, man. Every time I go back to that game, I'm like,
well, and not only does he play defense, but he's also receiving punts.
Yeah.
You're talking about Gene, right? What's his name? Gene?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's also receiving punts back there.
How do they let the Eagles get these guys, man? Like how does that happen? But in fairness, how does it happen? But it's an organization that jumps on the opportunity, right? We're not that organized. We did it once with Laramie Tunsil, and it worked out.
Right. It worked out. Yeah. And then what did we do?
Yeah. We never do it again. We
trade him to Houston, Houston is way ahead of us. And they got their quarterback. They got,
this never,
they got,
even when we think we win something, we lose something.
It's crazy. Yeah, exactly.
Even
when we do have something good, we let it go.
Again, it comes back from the deposition in the front office, the demeanor, the way they approach things. It keeps happening, and it keeps happening, and keeps happening because we don't change the way we have the same guys in the front office, game scouting department.
Yep.
What's going to change this year? Free agency should be interesting. The draft should be interesting. I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith this year. I don't have a good feeling about this year coming up, and I hate to say that this early.
I don't either.
So I don't really have and of course it won't be we bottom out, right? Because that never happens. Where now we're in the market for a top 5 quarterback. That won't happen. I just don't have a good feeling going into this year.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't either, George. I really don't. I mean, my feeling is worse this year than it was going into last year.
Right.
And last year I had a feeling. I said, I think they're going to struggle. I just have a bad feeling that that Tua is not going to stay healthy. And sure enough, I said that I said the ceiling for Miami would be 10-7, and I said, but don't be surprised if they go 8-9 or 9-8. And doggone it, didn't they go 8-9?
Yeah, and like you said, we'll have you covered here throughout the draft and the offseason. I got a new show kind of I'm working on. I don't want to reveal anything yet. It's kind of in the works, but I'll announce it at the appropriate time. But we'll have you covered to the draft and the free agency, all that stuff, and we'll give them a chance. Like maybe Chris Greer, like Howie Roseman. Howie was there for a long time until he kind of got it right. So there is that hope. There is hope with the young defensive line. We'll see. Let's give them a chance. But if you ask me now how I feel about it, it's not great. I think we'll end it there. We've been almost an hour here, Steve.
Absolutely. Sounds great.
Thank you so much, man, for joining me. I'll have you on again. Before you go, let everybody know where they can follow you and what you got going on, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on the Fins Talk Sports Network. My podcast is the Real Talks Fin Talk Fins Talk on the Fins Talk Sports Network. My show starts at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time every Tuesday night. And once a month, I have what they call Therapy Tuesday, where I will drop the link and all the Dolphins can come on and voice their opinions and give me their thoughts on how they feel the team is going and what their expectations are for the up and coming year. So tomorrow night, 7:30 Eastern Time will be Tuesday. Will be Therapy Tuesday. And so that's it with me. Basically, that's where everybody can catch me. And I'm on Twitter. You got, every once in a while I'll come on Twitter, and Twitter's my playground. So, yeah, you can catch me on Twitter as well.
I always think, what did we do? What did we do before Twitter with sports? I mean, I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but everybody, please catch Steve's show. It's fantastic. He said he's got Therapy Tuesday tomorrow. Check him out on the Fins Talk Sports Network. Follow them. Follow him. Everybody in the chat, thank you. Beachwave, DSG, Mia, my man Kenny, everybody who joined the chat and joined the show. Thank you guys. As always, stay Fins faithful. We are